distinguished guests, members of the academic community, fellow students, and friends of science, welcome to the 2025 Shaw Laureates Roundtable, Human Stories in Science, the Grit Behind the Glory, presented by the Shaw Prize Foundation. Before we begin, first a few housekeeping notes. Please kindly switch your mobile phones and any other electronic devices to silent mode. Today's event is being filmed and covered by members of the media. You're very welcome to take photos within the space of the studio, but please kindly refrain from doing so, including the videos outside of this space. Thank you again for your cooperation. My name is Ariel Yao, and I'm a third-year biology student from the University of Hong Kong's Science Masterclass. It is my honor to serve as your MC for today. Last year, I had the privilege to be sitting in this very audience as a student participant. I remember leaving the roundtable feeling deeply inspired, not just because of the brilliance of the science, but also because of the honesty of the stories shared, the struggles, the perseverance, and the human spirit behind each discovery. It reminded me that science isn't just about experiments or data, but it's also about resilience, collaboration, and the courage to keep asking questions. Today, it is extremely meaningful for me to be standing here as your MC and to help you to guide through today's program. Our theme, The Grit Behind the Glory, captures the essence of what inspired me the most last year, that the journey of science is often just as significant as the destination. To set the stage, we're honored to welcome Professor Reinhard Genzel, Chair of the Shaw Prize Board of Adjudicators. Professor Genzel was awarded the Shaw Prize in Astronomy in 2008 and later won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2020. He is a director at the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics, and his career is a shining example of perseverance and long-term vision in science. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Professor Reinhard Genzel.
Good afternoon. Great to see you all. The laureates, members of the Shaw community, and you all, young people, not so young people. It's wonderful to see you. To see you here to launch this exchange, because that's the motto, exchange and understanding. Last year, we launched this roundtable for the first time to bring voices together across disciplines, generations, and perspectives. I don't know many of the things the laureates have done. Still, I find them extremely interesting. It was a remarkable event. Participants brought engaging questions, sparking a vibrant exchange of ideas. And the microphone sings because of gravity. Gravity is a very important part of astronomy. Anyhow, sparkling exchanges between the laureates and the audience, because that's really what it is about. The energy and the insights shared are truly remarkable. So that was last year. This year, we focus on the human stories behind scientific achievements. We have to work hard, scientists have to work hard, but we live in a time of rapid transformation with innovative technologies, reshaping our world at an unprecedented way and speed. These advances, while extraordinary, can sometimes feel overwhelming, leading us to wonder how we navigate this fast-moving landscape. Of course, it's also important to see the role of science in our societies and how it brings them together instead of apart, as we see in so many places in the world. In moments like these, it's important to step back and reflect on the human qualities. Human qualities. These are curiosity, perseverance, and resilience. And they lie at the heart of all technological and scientific events, believe me. The theme of today's discussion is the grit behind the glory. For nix kommt nix is my personal German word for this. If you don't do anything, nothing will get out of it. So it invites to explore these stories of our laureates, our 2025 laureates. Each has overcome unique challenges, of course, to achieve these remarkable things and accomplishments they have given the prize for. Today, they will not share only their scientific journeys, but also their personal experiences. There are these days when nothing goes, but the next day is another day. And on another day, all of a sudden it goes. And that shaped their paths. We are privileged to learn from these stories. To the students and young researchers in the audience, I encourage you to engage in this conversation. Don't hesitate. Don't be shy. Just ask. Just make a statement. Please. They don't bite, I believe. Your questions, whether about science, these personal struggles, and their vision for the future will enrich you into this roundtable. Let your questions spark new ideas, inspire you to embrace the challenges of discovery. Discovery, coming together, and each and every one will be taking something from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Genso, for that inspiring address. We would now like to take a moment for a few group photographs. May I please invite to the stage Dr. Raymond Chan, Chair of the Shaw Prize Foundation. Professor Kenneth Young, Chair of the Shaw Prize Council. Professor Ming-Chen Chu, Member of the Shaw Prize Council, and our Shaw Laureates, Professor John Richard Bond, Professor George Efstathiou, Professor Wolfgang Baumeister, and Professor Kenji Fukaya. Thank you. Perhaps one more photograph? Okay, we now like to invite our keynote speaker and representatives from the Shaw Prize Foundation and Council to please take your seats. As we have our laureates remain in position, let us be joined by our moderator for the upcoming panel, Professor Samuel Wong, Associate Dean of Education at the Faculty of Medicine and Director of the Jockey Club School of Public Health and Primary Care at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Thank you. We now move to the heart of today's program, our panel discussion, Human Stories in Science, the Grit Behind the Glory. The panel discussion will be moderated by Professor Samuel Wong, Associate Dean of Education at the Faculty of Medicine and Director of the Jockey Club School of Public Health and Primary Care at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Joining us today are the 4 distinguished Shaw Laureates of 2025. John Richard Bond, Shaw Laureates in Astronomy, 2025. George Efstathiou, Shaw Laureates in Astronomy, 2025. Wolfgang Baumeister, Shaw Laureates in Life Sciences and Medicine, 2025. And Kenji Fukaya, Shaw Laureates in Mathematical Sciences, 2025. Without further ado, let me turn the floor over to Professor Wong to start the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, laureates, all the distinguished people in the audience, students, scientists, scholars. I think this is the part that we all are very excited about, to know more about the stories behind the scientific discoveries. So we will explore about the personal stories of scientific discoveries and think about and to learn more about the grit that all the scientists has gone through during the discovery, and also to learn more about the friendships that has developed over the years. So I will start with Professor Bond. So you mentioned how George Gamo's 1, 2, 3 infinity profoundly shaped your decision to become a cosmologist. And can you take us back to the moments when you first encountered this book and tell us the story behind this?
Well, I would like to say that I read it when it was first written, which was around the year of my birth, but I wasn't quite reading English that well then. But I think it was my early teens, not late teens, but early teens, where it was a remarkable piece of work because what it did was to try and tell the cosmic story from what they thought the beginning might be to the formation of the solar system, Earth, and the formation of life on Earth. And maybe the most interesting aspect of that is the title, which is just so wonderfully outrageous and evocative. 1, 2, 3, infinity, which describes that mathematics is the language to understand the cosmos. And just as an aside, the great George Gamow, by trying to understand what could be created in the earliest moments of the universe, the elements, said there must be a cosmic microwave background. I didn't appreciate it when I first read it, but it turned out to be what George and I are being awarded for. The cosmic microwave background, the photon afterglow of the Big Bang. And what a remarkable concept that is. Back to you.
So some unpredictability of the inspiration is from reading the book that has inspired you.
Yeah, a slightly later generation, which many people may relate to, is that many of my colleagues got stimulated by Star Trek. And that's how they decided that deep science would be what they would go for. But for us, it was the book. And it's not just me. Some of the greatest physicists, for example, people winning the Nobel Prize, they were infinitely inspired by this book. So I've hit resonance with so many superstar physicists who got inspired by this book.
Do you have any advice for the young audience today that now people may not read books anymore and they go for social media, they go for internet, and they go for the IG and etc. You know, do you think this is now a more challenging time for people to get ideas, or do you think it's even better because they get all sorts of information easily?
Well, combining the visuals with the words is fantastic. But the biggest issue of our time, in my view, is going deep. Going deep into a subject is the critical element and sort of thing that we did. And when you're surfing the web, you aren't going deep. And what young people should learn is that depth is what creates great accomplishment. And surfing is fun, but it is not going to create great things.
So surfing created entertainment. Going deep creates great discovery.
Yeah, unless you're so fast of a thinker that surfing allows you to soak everything up. But essentially, nobody can do that.
Thank you for the very good advice. Maybe I will go to George. I know you're good friends with Richard, but I want to ask you something about your journey with your childhood experiences, including encyclopedias, Patrick Moore's program, and the Apollo missions. You know, how did these early influences shape your approach to fundamental cosmological questions?
Yeah. I mean, the reason that I was interested in studying cosmology and learning about our universe actually started much before that. And I think like a lot of young kids, I mean, I'm not talking now
How old were you when you first?
maybe 3 or 4 years old. I mean, when you're that age, I mean,
3 or 4.
I experienced, and I think other people have experienced similar things. You kind of wake up and say, "What am I? What is this?" You know, and you look, you know, you think about the universe and where does it end? But the key thing is, what is our place here? What are we? And so that was a feeling, you know, when I was very young. And then as I got older, I got more and more interested in actually trying to learn about these things and, you know, asking these questions about the universe. I mean, you mentioned encyclopedia. My family did not have a history of university education, so there weren't very many books in the house. There was a children's encyclopedia, which I read from cover to cover, and I was particularly inspired in that by pictures of the Hale telescope, 200-inch telescope that became operational in 1949 and stayed the biggest telescope in the world for decades. And that was really inspirational in the sense that, you know, people are building this amazing machine to discover things about the universe. And, you know, to this day, I have pictures of the Hale telescope in my office at work and at home. And that's a permanent reminder of why I do cosmology.
I'm going to ask you a personal question.
Yeah.
How many telescopes do you have?
How many telescopes? So I have one quite good telescope.
Yes.
That's actually in the living room because we can't keep it outside, so it's in the living room. That's quite a large refractor and it's computer controlled. And I have an old telescope in the attic.
And do you have many over the years?
When I was about 10 years old, I had a telescope and I used to look at the sky from my bedroom.
Wow.
So
And where were you back then, looking at it?
in London. So there's not a lot you can see looking at the sky in London from your bedroom window.
I see.
But you can see, I mean, what was really interesting was following the moons of Jupiter, which is an easy thing to do.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, it's interesting. With the refractor at home, the newer telescope, I said to my wife one evening, have you seen the rings of Saturn? We'd had the telescope for quite a long time. She said, no. And so I found Saturn, and she went, oh, wow! You know, so, you know, it is amazing to see these things.
So it almost sounds like your interest, your passion developed at a very young age.
Very young.
It's like you have a distinct likeness for the telescope, even within a book of other things.
Absolutely, and so, you know, the reason that I went on to do astronomy and to study cosmology was because I didn't grow up.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Let me direct the next questions to Professor Baumeister. You know, a high school research project in plant ecology seems to ignite your interest. But it was until after your PhD that you set yourself on the path of biophysics. You know, how did you navigate this journey to biophysics? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that was a relatively long journey. I mean, indeed, I enjoyed doing a project in high school in the last 3 years in plant ecology. So it was based on observation, statistical analysis, etc. I enjoyed that much more than the classes in grammar school. And okay, I think it was also successful in the sense that I competed with it and won the German science fair. So that reinforced my feeling that going into science would be the thing I wanted to do. And then I have to say that the next step, I mean, when in the late 60s I went first to the University of Münster and then Bonn, the curriculum in biology was extremely frustrating. I have to say it was completely non-molecular. Basically, I think we were sitting from morning to evening, dissecting either all sorts of creatures or plants or whatever. And then I think we were expected to do wonderful drawings. So I think one day I had moved then to the University of Bonn. I found an abandoned electron microscope in one institute, and I was allowed to put it into operation. I taught myself the art of specimen preparation. So that, I mean, was my beginning in electron microscopy, but at the end I felt this was still not really professional, so I decided to move to the Institute of Biophysics at the University of Düsseldorf. That was run by Helmut Ruska, the brother of Ernst Ruska, who had invented the electron microscope in the 1930s. So he gave me a project that was in the trend at the time. There was, I mean, a prospect that one could image single heavy atoms, so the performance of microscope had reached that level. And so there were a couple of crazy ideas what one could do with it. There was the idea that one could, I mean, label, for instance, bases and do DNA sequencing by electron microscopy, which never worked. So I was expected to do something similar with membranes, and I think I succeeded at the end of the day, I mean, to obtain single heavy atom images in organometallic compounds. Now I think I was very proud when this was accepted almost immediately by Nature, but I think that is not a success because, I mean, almost 60 years later now, I have to say that this wonderful paper has received 5 citations.
In Nature.
Yeah. I'm saying that because I think it is a trend in China that it only counts, I mean, to publish in high-impact journals, but they should measure success not by the impact of the journal, but I mean, it was completely clear that this was completely dead-ended. Okay, radiation damage, I mean, could not be overcome. The problem, I think, there you have to do very low exposures and to improve signal noise than by averaging and by other measures of image processing. So I think nobody followed in this direction. I mean, it was a dead-ended thing.
So for you, it's more like a self-discovery. You did something and then you thought,
Yeah, I think the field realized, and there were no low-dose techniques at the time. I think after 5, 6, 7 years, I would say in the early 70s, nobody continued in that direction. I think the field went into what was referred to at the time as electron crystallography. But again, that was maybe a period that was successful for 10 years, and then I think all the restrictions and the limitations to persuade molecules to form two-dimensional crystals of good order, of high order, so not limiting resolution, I mean, was just too painful, and other techniques took over. But I mean, the basic approach remained the same. I mean, low-dose exposure and restoring or improving signal-to-noise ratio by image processing.
So do you have any advice for students who might not be very certain about the field that they want to choose?
Well, I think you have to accept that. I think you make mistakes. Okay, I think it's
Be open about it.
yeah. I mean, it's often, I think, the most difficult thing if you have worked very hard along a certain line, and then you realize, and you have to say, well, it does not make sense to continue in this direction. We have to change to a different path.
So be aware.
So
and then-
giving up
yeah.
on something you have, I mean, worked very hard on for, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years, that can be hard, but I think it has to be done.
So be courageous to change the
Yeah,
field is necessary.
yeah. Well, if you have a better idea how to deal with that, I think then it's not so difficult. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Let's go to Professor Fukaya. So you have described mathematics as allowing explorations beyond physical experiences while maintaining rigorous precision. What drew you to this very unique combination?
So, first of all, in mathematics, many important mathematics start by dreaming. You have to imagine something which should be great. I mean, this imagination is very important because you just follow something people already proposed. Then maybe you can get good result, but the best thing is just to have some imagination and some new directions. So you have a lot of dreams. And what's important in mathematics is that the dream should be tested. I mean, if you go to the world of art, then the people just draw very beautiful art and very kind of avant-garde style art. And the way how something is really a good thing or just a kind of stupid things which just survive for a few years, it's just, of course it's tested, but in a way somehow how people react and how history goes, it is something more accidental. But in mathematical world, if you dream something, then this dream either can be proved to be true or not to be true. And that's something which is beyond any human power. It is decided by the world itself. And also you can try hard to actually realize your dream. So this is a very nice part of a story. The dream is some very personal things. Your dream could be very different to any other dreams. And your personal experience or personal life or your taste could be reflected to the dream. But this dream is interacted to the real world through the process to prove it and to check it. So it's a kind of a great combination of the reality and the dream.
So it's not only just dreaming, but making it to be realized and implemented. So how do you, or do you have any advice for scientists to increase the dreams? Like how to increase the creativity and
Dangerous question.
Increase the dream is basically you have to learn something.
ask something?
Learn.
Long.
Because I mean, the dream cannot come from the empty thing, from the
Build on
vacuum.
some foundation.
Yeah, so there are some kind of a big thing about what has been already established, but all this structured kind of things should be understood your own way. So I mean, when you say some particular areas, there are particular ways that people always explained these areas. And that became too much in a kind of standard. And this standard actually can change frequently, But if you do not think yourself so much, you accept some authority says, then just explain this in a very standard way, then that isn't coming. And so anything, you have to think your own way. Then finally you have another vision. That's, I think, how the dream comes.
So be open and curious.
Yeah, and also be your own.
Be your own. And believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you. So next, I think is also really touching the belief in yourself part is I believe all great discovery, there's a period where you have to really persevere, have the grit to go through the hardships. So next question I'd like to ask George. So in the early 1990s, your galaxy survey results challenged prevailing cosmological models and initially faced skepticism. So how did you navigate this, professional challenge?
Yes, okay, I'll take you a little bit back before. So we developed, not just Dick and I, but other scientists, we developed a model which looked very compelling, in which fluctuations were generated in the very early universe from quantum effects, and then structure evolved in a universe dominated by weakly interacting particles. So that was the general framework. So what stimulated us to do our work on the galaxy survey was to try and get observations to create a galaxy survey so that we could measure structure on larger scales than had ever been measured before. And this would be a test of the theory. So that's what we set out to do, and we created this a survey of 4.5 million galaxies. And the results of that survey disagreed with the model. And so this was a real challenge. So what we did was we spent over a year checking everything, redoing the analysis, doing the analysis in different ways. And basically, we couldn't change the answers. It just kept disagreeing with the model. And in that situation, there's only one thing that you can do, which is to publish the results. It doesn't agree with the model, but here are our results. And that gives an opportunity for other people to do other work and so on, and then check what you've done. And it's very dangerous to suppress publication because you don't agree with prevailing wisdom. We also published a possible explanation, which was that the universe had another component to it, not just dark matter, but dark energy. It took a number of years before that explanation was accepted, and it was finally accepted from observations of distant supernovae, which provided a much, much more direct way of testing the expansion history of the universe. And that was done by 2 supernova teams. And when they published their results, basically the community accepted that there was this additional component to the universe. And that's become our standard model of cosmology today. But in any case, I'm particularly proud of that work because we didn't give up. We did it, and we were honest about it, and published it, and it turned out to be right.
So be honest.
Well,
and be persistent.
Yeah.
How would you give advice to young scientists who may be facing criticism about their own research?
Well, as I said, if you've done some work and you've checked it, it doesn't matter whether it disagrees with what other people have done or whatever. If you have to have the self-belief that you've done an analysis, and you publish it. And if you're wrong, it'll be found out. That's the way that science works. But if there is, if of course you do something that challenges the prevailing wisdom and it turns out to be right, then you get a Shaw Prize. So there's a reward at the end of it.
Any I mean, what are the things that hold you through these, the period when it's still, what were you doing was a little bit different from what was the prevailing ideas?
Oh, look, underlying all of this is, you should be, we are observing the universe. We're trying to understand the universe, and the universe tells us what it's like. We don't tell the universe what it's like, okay? So
you're just describing what you believe to be the truth out there. Yeah, thank you. I'll go to Professor Baumeister. So you pioneered cryo-electron tomography despite widespread skepticism and technical barriers. What sustained your commitment during these relatively difficult years?
Well, there was a great deal of skepticism. I think there was one line of arguments basically saying, what do you really expect to get out of it? That I never understood, because I think it was clear to me that if you get the molecular architecture of a cell in near atomic detail, then I think you have a very good framework for understanding the inner working of cells. So I think the value or the knowledge you can get out of it was pretty clear. The other line of arguments was basically it's technically not feasible because of the radiation sensitivity of biological material embedded in ice. And I think that took quite a long time, because it was an issue of the main solution came from the physical principle of dose fractionation. So there's a certain dose that is tolerated without substantial radiation damage, and that has to be distributed over as many projections as possible. So that required automation, and I think at the time we started, that was in about 35 years ago, the technology was not really there. There were no really good detectors, etc., etc. So it took a fairly long time, but I think we always had the feeling, I think one can overcome the problems.
Was there ever a time that you lost confidence in what you did?
No, I would not say. I don't think there was a moment when we really lost confidence. I think, of course, there were highlights and there were also downs. That is no question. But I think there was, I would say, over a long period, kind of steady progress. There was not a single breakthrough, I would say, but there were, kind of many milestones. And I think with reaching each and every milestone, I think there was clearly a feeling, I think we are still moving forward.
So you're doing step by step, closer?
Yeah, that is the technology development basically both on the hardware side, but also in terms of image processing, image analysis, I think, and step by step. And I don't think there was a critical moment when we felt we are never going to achieve it.
Thank you. Now I will ask Professor Fukaya. Your work on Kuranishi structures initially met confusion and skepticism, requiring years of clarification. How did you persevere through this challenging period? And was it very challenging for you during those times?
So skepticism is better than ignorance. What I first met is this ignorance. First, when we wrote this paper with Kaoru Ono in 1996, there are several other people who do the similar thing, and that solves some famous problem called Arnold's conjecture in some particular cases. And but though we expect that this kind of technology will soon spread out, and because this kind of opens the way to apply some basic method of simple topology to wider class of manifold. But people, this paper was published, and nobody at that time so much say it is wrong, but people do not change so much. For a long time, like more than 10 years, they just stay in under the same restrictions. They never use this more wider class, we just make it possible. But what we can do is, so it's just ignorance. And what we can do is just to keep working on, to kind of to use this technology higher. In a sense, there's no competition because nobody tried to use it. So we can use it in this. And we believe is a powerful tool. So we have a lot of advantage. And after 10 years, we just write down some books, which is related to this category, Fukaya category and the Lagrange player theory. And so we finished it, and with two more collaborators, Yongin Go and Hiroshi Ota. And the problem is that this book is 800 pages long. And it is very much technical detail contains. And usually, math papers should be peer reviewed. And in this kind of ignorance situations, it is extremely hard to find somebody to read this full detail of the proofs.
How many pages?
800.
800 pages.
Yeah.
So it's pretty hard to find peer review.
Yeah. And then this Sentun Yao is the editor of some series called AMS IP research monograph. And then he recommended us to sub-publish it in this series. So we published 2-volume books. And probably nobody really read because it's 800 pages. But it was published. Then it was the beginning of the next stage. So we keep going, and we have some concrete examples. We can calculate what we discovered. And we published a few more papers. After that, there starts some group of people start asking the questions about the detail of what we did 10 years ago. And then we are very happy, because now we can start explaining this detail and scriptural things. And then there is some Google group called Kuranishi, and they ask questions, we reply the answers. And after 1 year, then this Google group stopped. Then I moved to the United States and in some Simon Center. Then I organized with some other people 1 year, special year, to discuss these foundations of this thing. It's not only our thing, but there are many foundational problems. And 1 year, many people came. And then, as a byproduct of these things, we published a book, another book of 600. And so now I feel that the number of people who increase to understand is getting increased. So,
do you think the interconnectedness and the social media and those sort of channels will help scientists to get the results more easily to get disseminated and communicated?
I mean, in some superficial sense, something like email helps us to communicate. But social media and that kind of thing, I mean, we use this Google group, but it's very special situations.
It's very special.
Yeah, and so actual discussion, we need somebody to come and to talk each other to very details. And also, not only that, after discussing, maybe somebody takes some time.
Yes.
For example, for me to understand some new concept, a new argument, we sit down in our office, read papers, taking a month. So that's very much different kind of activities from social media.
Thank you. Now is to Richard. Professor Bond, you have described the rarity of scientific breakthroughs and the need for continuing striving. How do you maintain your motivation during these long periods without clear results?
Well, I think, as I've said, nothing stops me.
Nothing stopped you.
Nothing stops me. And an advantage of being a theorist is that you can be fast on your feet and go from one problem to the other. And ultimately, all of the problems are interconnected. But what you don't know is if the line that you're on is going to be what Mother Nature chooses to reward us with, that is to say, cosmic truth. And so, although we had a really powerful indication from different elements that we were on the right track in terms of the theories that we came up with, we didn't know. It could have been other ingredients, and different people were exploring them. But everything as you have heard, came into place ultimately. And so the concept was that we would add more and more things. So George talked about his results, and we were doing some things related to that earlier on the galaxy clustering that gave us the indication beforehand, and George was engaged with us, that there was something that was needed in the theories, but there was a discrepancy. And the discrepancy was significant, and it was George's results that brought everything together, and that led, before the supernova, to the idea that dark energy was currently the dominant form of energy density of the universe. So that's the framework. Now, we can go back to difficulties. And the difficulty, which probably everybody in the audience has faced, is that you have to be fast at debugging if you deal with computer codes. And so there will always be a bug, and the famous statement about computer codes is there's always a last bug that you haven't found. And so the debug process is ubiquitous, and it isn't just the debugging of computer programs, it's also the debugging of your mind in order to see what is the right path and what is the wrong path. So in the sense of the grittiness of the work, it is the speed of your synaptic gaps which allow you to move quickly through the whole range of possibilities, and then discard and follow what will ultimately become the right path. And so debug yourself is perhaps a dictum which everybody should be taking into account.
Any advice to how to debug?
It's, I think, becomes simpler in the days now of highly sophisticated artificial intelligence, which is really helping with computer coding. But that wasn't the way back when we were doing our work. So it was intense work. And what is it? How do you do it? How you do it is you think with a total focus, logic, in order to make sure that the engines, the computational engines that you are creating, are giving you the right answer. So it involves intuition of what's wrong and what's right, but also just absolutely intense focus mentally.
Intense focus. Thank you. You also know George for many years. This is like 4 decades. Am I right? 40 years.
4.5.
4.5. Wow. So, can you tell us how these friendships over the years have supported you together with more scientific discoveries?
George and I, like that, he's described us as brothers, brothers in arms or brothers in cosmology.
And you met in Berkeley from...
Yeah, but I want to talk about the whole issue of friendship generally within the scientific concept. So it was a collective grouping of people that were trying to create these new models for how the universe operated. And what drove it is that everybody was good friends with everybody else. And that was a grouping of a certain age, which was like beginning in the very early 80s, but extending with George and I through all of the decades, through all of the subsequent developments, but with those other people as well. But I think important for this audience is that science should not be, as much as you can make it, hierarchical. That professors, postdocs, graduate students, undergraduates are essentially, in my view, effectively equivalent, and they should all be friends with each other because that is the essence of the cosmic journey, which is that everybody is in this together, and age or hierarchical boundaries is not the best approach for doing the deepest work. So we have multi-generational friendships. And then I'll go back to my good friend George as one of my best friends over my cosmic history.
Do you mind to share a little bit? What do your group of your lab? What do you do together? Do they go to your house for barbecue and you're really friendly environment, etc., and then generate new ideas, etc.?
So I've been using very much this analog. There was a famous book by Ernest Hemingway in the 20s that they called it A Movable Feast. They were moving their way across Europe, going from France, you don't need to know the details, France to Spain, and having feasts along the way. And what we have been doing is having movable feasts of ideas and also of fun, of joy, of the groups together. And so I describe the development of our subject as a movable feast of all of those things that come together to create great accomplishments. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really, in my view, the essence of the human endeavor.
Wow. George, do you have anything to supplement? That sounds like very fun.
So the interesting, I mean, you know, the friendship, we met when I was 24 and a postdoc at Berkeley, and we overlapped as postdocs.
Yes.
And so we were working on different things at that time, but the idea that the dominant form of matter in the universe was some different type of matter to ordinary matter, that's what brought us together, and we started working on projects then. But you know, when we were at Berkeley, we would go to parties together, we'd go to bars together, you know, we were all social, you know, science and socializing. We would work late. We were both night workers, you know, predominantly night workers. But then, you know, Dick got a job someplace else, and I got a job in Cambridge, and then, you know, the collaboration became sort of remote. Then Dick came over spent a year in Cambridge, and then we did the parties and late night working and everything again. So it's oscillated like that. But we argue sometimes.
And I was always right.
That's an example, right? So we didn't necessarily agree on everything, but you know, the friendship and bouncing ideas off each other is really it's an important. That's why, you know, I describe Dick as you know, more like a brother than a scientific collaborator, because it's just an integral part of your life.
I see.
You know?
Wow.
So
that's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
So how often do you see each other now in meeting?
Not as often as we should, because we're at different institutions. Yes. So nowadays we tend to. I mean, we saw quite a lot of each other when we had the Planck satellite, taking data, because we were both involved in Planck, and then afterwards we're at different institutions, so we meet at conferences. That's you know.
But we've been meeting a lot lately, and not just for the Shaw, for other things. So
yeah,
it's a good reunion.
Yeah, it's like you never leave each other when you come together. It's like the years fall off, and it's like situation normal from the beginning.
It's a very unique friendship. Thank you. Sir, I will direct to Professor Baumeister. You have emphasized the importance of mentors, and collaboration with researchers like Owen Saxton. So how did these relationships shape your approach?
Well, with Owen Saxton, very specifically, that was at a time when I was in Cambridge at the Cavendish, and we developed image processing tool, developed new resolution criteria, etc. So it was a collaboration which, I mean, led to some friendship, which continues to this day. Now, these days, I think the type of collaborations I have are of a different kind. It's more that people come, they have a biology problem and ask, I mean, whether we can help with that problem using the technology we developed. Mentoring, I think my mentoring was fairly superficial, I would say. When I went to Düsseldorf as a PhD student, Helmut Ruska was the rector of the university and very busy. So I think basically I saw him, let's say, 2-3 times a year in the hallway, and he would ask me how are things going, and I said, well, going well. That was it, and I've never done a postdoc anywhere. I got a grant at the end of my PhD from very generous reviewers, and so and Ruska passed away 3 months after I got my PhD. So I was completely on my own, and I enjoyed my complete freedom. I think I made a couple of mistakes. I think some warning would have been helpful from time to time, but I enjoyed my freedom.
Any advice for young people here in the audience looking for mentors? What kind of attributes?
Yeah, as I said, I think a real mentor, I think, would have given me some advice. I mean, maybe to go into a different direction or whatever. So I think it was, it would have been, I think I would have made some shortcuts, I think, if I had had a mentor. But I think...
what kind of mentor are you now? I'm curious.
I think I try to give the people I'm working with as much freedom as possible. Okay, so I think they have to be self-motivated, and I think I try to support them as well as I can, but I mean...
a lot of autonomy on their part.
Yeah. I think you must ask my collaborators, postdocs.
So does your group also work together, like gathering together? Like what's George?
Yeah, I think now my group in Munich is very small. I think my group in Munich is now something like 4 or 5 people since I'm an emeritus. I think the group in Shanghai, I think is now, we are in the, 25 or so roughly. So, but because I'm there only from time to time, I mean, let's say 5-6 times a year, I think. But during my visits, I mean, the interaction is pretty close.
I see. Thank you. I would direct this question to Professor Fukaya. You have described collaboration as essential for refining and extending mathematical ideas. How do you balance independent thinking with collaborative approaches?
I think mostly mathematics are by individuals. There are some cases that there are some small number of collaborators, but compared to other disciplines, so just Professor Baumeister said that he has a group of 25 persons. That kind of thing is very much difficult for mathematicians. First of all, I am a kind of person who is very bad on human relations. So the best thing I can do is just to keep away from people, to think myself, to read something. But so the communication between mathematicians are more indirect. We just submit papers and read ourselves, or to attend some conference to listen somebody explain their works,
Yes.
and somebody explain something to other people.
Yes.
And of course, I have these 3 collaborators working together with this project, and we kind of met very frequent. And one of this is good is that, as I said, that for a long time it was ignored, and also it contains a huge amount of tiny technical details. And so to be really confirmed that it is no problem, then we need somebody outside of each person so that we can check each other. And also existence of collaborators gives some pressure to work really serious about the detail. Sometimes you have some ideas which this part looks correct, but then to work it out and to write down full detail it's a kind of pain. And so you adjust by yourself. Probably you are not kind of enough honest to go into that detail. But then in the long run, there might be some errors.
I see.
But our collaborator is very more severe because they know everything very well, each other. So we have only always under pressure of the collaborators. We have to work hard. That's very important. And also, collaborators is much better than just usual persons. They are very much in kind of positive. So this collaboration works very nicely. But this probably is not so much usual in mathematics. But
I also, before we go to the second sessions of open question to the audience, I'd like to ask all of you about creativity. It seems that creativity is such an important component of your discovery. Do you do anything that can help you become more creative? Maybe I will start with Richard first. Did the creativity start suddenly, or is there anything that you do to make you become more creative?
The way I might refer to it is not that I'm crazy now, but crazy after all these years. That is to say, you have to have a way of mind which is highly flexible, and thinking inside the box is something that I definitely have not done, and I have no intention of ever doing it. Being outside the box, thinking differently, and hopefully telling my colleagues that this is the way to think about things. This is the next step. This is the creative step. So it's a way of mind, and that way of mind is, to me, the most precious aspect, really, of what I do. I mean, I do the technical. I actually do it very well with George and with others. But it is that creative spirit which is what I'm most keen about, because it involves internal development of the mind, which is really what science is, whether it's our science or other people's science. You could say that it's the Zen of science, where you're in a state and you get ideas which have creativity that are new and haven't been thought. And it doesn't mean that they weren't sort of out there, but you're trying to bring things together in ways that people have not thought of before. And that's the critical element. And my own view is that that's what all humans should be striving for, that internal creativity, which then becomes external results, which are new. And so for me, that is the most important question. And if we're going, I'm going to anticipate, how do young people do it? You can't be afraid of being creative and having new ideas. You have to be able to, going back to the earlier statement, you have to be able to debug yourself so that you aren't going off on some tangent. But it is the self-development, which is the fundamental thing in terms of scientific accomplishment. And so creativity is at the core, and I pride myself in my approaches to creativity.
Thank you. Very, very insightful remarks. What about you, George? Yeah.
I'll tell you a little story.
Yes.
Okay. So after Berkeley, where I met Dick, I went to Cambridge, and at Cambridge they have a college system, and I was attached to King's College. That was my college. And after about a year, I got a letter from the head of the college. And the letter said, "We think you've been working too hard. We have a fund, and so we're offering you £600 to have a holiday."
Wow.
Okay. And you have to promise to get the money. You have to promise that you will not use it to do any work, to go to a conference or anything. It has to be exclusively for a holiday.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine getting a letter like that?
And this is factual. You
This
did.
is true story. This is a true story. I mean, it sounds crazy.
Quite
but-
amazing, isn't it?
Okay, but what happened
Yes.
was I went on holiday to, you know,
Yes.
my family comes from Cyprus, so I went to Cyprus. And I was sitting on the beach,
Yes.
sun, everything, lovely. And I suddenly had an idea
Wow.
on the
There you go, work
you
again.
know, on the beach. And then when I went back to Cambridge, wow, you know, now I'm, you know,
Did
starting.
you cut your trip short? Because
No, I did not cut the trip short. I mean, I think that probably violated the conditions. But there is, you know, an important story here because I think for creativity, pressure stifles creativity. I mean, if you
Pressure.
if you're overworked, if you're overburdened, you need space to be creative. And if you have money problems, you know, family problems,
Yes.
you know, work problems, these stifle creativity.
Yes.
And so, so you need the space, I think, to allow, you know, your mind to just think about things and not be pressurized.
That's very useful for us.
But it's a true story. It sounds crazy, but it's a
Yeah,
absolutely true story.
Is that the only letter ever given in Cambridge?
I'm sorry?
Or other colleagues have similar problems?
I've never heard of anybody who's been offered a
How
deal
remarkable of work-life balance
Oh yeah.
of the university. How kind are they? What about Professor? What about you? How did you?
We don't have anything like King's College, and so I mean,
Did you get a letter? No. No letter.
no. I mean, from time to time, we have a second home in the mountains in the Alps, and we spend we try at least to spend some quality time there with our grandsons, etc., etc. I used to do a lot of skiing. That was very relaxing, but I think my current back problems made that a little bit difficult. So I'm careful there.
Did you become creative? Do you have ideas during the skiing, for example? when you
No,
come
I
into
think
a ski?
sitting there, and I mean, it's an old farmhouse, 250 years old, protected building, and I think we can really relax there, and I think then occasionally comes a creative moment.
Huh? That sounds like a consistent theme that you need some breaks to have this creativity. What about Kenji? What helps your creativity?
So I think something really new and novel, especially I know in mathematics, came something like a miracle. So my feeling is that there is no way there is no kind of scheme you get a miracle. So, but I mean, something I can say is that some kind of attitude by which you can never get creativity. So something opposite. So if you just do...
Oh, you mean you're intentionally wanting to be creative, then you...
No. I mean, what I want to say is that if you think your work,
Yes.
scientific work, just as a kind of duties, so you feel that this is not so much funny, but maybe I live on this, so I have to do this. And if you keep working this way, creativity never comes. You have to enjoy, and if you feel that this is unless you do this, maybe you will lose your job, or your next paper does not come. But but you have to keep kind of train yourself not to kind of compromise. You have to kind of insist, trying to find something really attractive to you. Then I cannot promise that you can find a really nice thing by this way. But something very clear for me is that if you are not going this way, you will never get any creativity.
So what is your way of getting breaks away from work? What will you do?
In different situations, in some situations, when I am kind of successfully working, it is very difficult to go away from mathematics.
Yes.
So then usually I just keep working. But then if I feel that I am too much exhausted, so I need to do something like a baiju, just to go away from my mathematics. But otherwise, maybe just keep working. No need to go.
Wow, and you never
Right.
receive any letter or anything.
Yeah, I think once I have a memory that I was 2 or 3 days thinking the same thing, and I was living by myself. And I somehow realized a few times that maybe I need to eat, but unfortunately, it was something like a midnight. And then after 2 days, then I happened to realize that I have to eat, and it was around noon. So I get bus to go to nearby stations, and then I was really exhausted. So I mean, maybe it is more difficult now, but you have to concentrate that kind of ways.
I see. So, well, I think we have 1 minute left before we open the question to the audience. So maybe I take this time to thank all of the distinguished laureates for sharing the personal and profound insights into your scientific discovery. And I believe your story of inspiration, perseverance, be curious, and also be creative will actually inspire a lot of the people in the audience. So we have about 30 seconds before the next session. So let me brief the audience about the next half an hour of what we're going to do. So there are Q&A for the next half an hour, and please raise your hand if you have a question. Wait for the microphone before speaking, and also begin by stating your name and affiliation. So keep your question brief and focused, and then we try to accommodate as many questions as possible. Okay? So I believe we can start now. So please, any question? Yes, please.
Okay, Reinhard Genzel, an astrotype like these two gentlemen, only experimental.
I see.
Here's a question to all of you I get a lot of times, and that goes about like this. Look, you professor such and such, I hear you are a great mind, and you're brilliant, and you do all kinds of great things, but honestly, who cares about the stars and the cosmic microwave background and the details of DNA and whether the functions in a certain, mathematical expression is more beautiful than that. There are real problems on Earth. Why should put this other stuff down for a while and spend your energy to help human mankind to solve these problems?
So any quick response, maybe Richard, please.
We have made responses like this, as you undoubtedly have, from time immemorial. They call what we do blue sky research. But the reality is, if you don't have that at the heart of your civilization, you will not have people who are striving, because the thing that creates great accomplishments in science, but also in humanity, is passion. And passion is what fuels young people to decide, I must know this body of knowledge. I must understand this. And when you do that, you start to develop your mind, and you can then move into any subject area whatsoever, including those things that make a lot of money. Now, I have chosen not, except for the Shaw Prize, to try and make a lot of money. And I don't really understand money. But what I do understand is that a civilization will not make money unless they generate a group of people who are committed to develop themselves and then put it into the furthering of their society. And what is fundamental, as I don't have to tell anybody about, is that science and technology go hand in hand, and technology and science is what is made the prosperity of the world And we could go into the details of, science has stimulated the development thing. We had this little anecdote today with the young people. The World Wide Web is out of science. It is not out of, and it was done to bring scientists together collaboratively, and just think of what the world, maybe it would be better, but what the world would be like without the World Wide Web. And that is the best of the science. And it's not just the science, it is the science in collaboration. So I don't think that we should always have to make the case. But as you know, Reinhardt, we always have to make the case. Because the natural thing for a government to say is, I want practical, I want practical, I want practical. But I don't think you get the practical without the passion, which is defined by the attempt to go for the really great ideas. And of course, I go on for too long.
Oh, that was very useful. And also George has something to supplement.
Yes. So I have a different perspective on that question, Reinhardt, which is that, I would have thought that governments would want to concentrate on problems like making the trains run on time, getting the health service to run properly, and so on. But in fact, governments of all political persuasions seem to have an incredible interest in the nature of dark energy, and they've poured loads of money into big
I think the
projects.
name also make it very, very special.
Very good.
And I don't know why.
Interesting. What about Kenji and Professor Baumeister? What do you think of these questions?
Well, on one hand, I think in our case, I think it's maybe a little bit easier. There are clear expectations. I think structural biology, what people expect, and also, of course, what governments, they try to put some pressure in this direction, is that it serves drug discovery. So, understanding the inner working of cells, I think there might be, and there are for sure, opportunities for drug discovery, which is very heavily based on structural biology, of course, but in the past, I think targeting individual molecules and not targeting their interactions. Okay, so I think in our case, it's easier maybe to explain to the public what the outcome may be, but still, I think we have to defend that we want to do basic science, and I think I'm, as my colleagues know, a bit resistant to, orders from the government, go into translation. And I think my motivation for doing it is really to understand how a cell operates, not, what we could get out of it.
What about mathematics?
I think mathematics is a bit special area as compared to other people saying. It takes something like hundreds of years before it really affects everyday life of usual people. But then we have to find some particular way so that we conduct the research, whose importance is evident only several hundred years later. And I think the mathematician's way to develop such a way is to believe our sense of beauty on mathematical truth. And so I try hard to kind of follow my sense of beauty, and many mathematicians do that kind of ways. And of course, it might be wrong. So it is not guaranteed. My sense of beauty, it makes something very important for human life several hundred years later. But what is very clear is that this total activity of mathematics contribute so much, huge amount of contributions to the everyday life in the long run. And so I hope that the people may not trust me, but may not trust mathematics community in the whole, their serious effort to conduct some research which will kind of affect people's life in the long run.
Thank you. So I think we are also open to other questions. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, maybe maybe we will ask the.
Thank you. Hello, all laureates. I'm Ariel. I'm the MC, but I just want to ask a question as a student. Professor Bond, you mentioned that we really need to dig deep into a matter to achieve great things, but especially with many different, the abundance of sciences, AI, everything's being streamlined nowadays, and interdisciplinary sciences is obviously on the move, very popular. So just as students, how should we be prioritizing learning and exploring so many different things, trying to connect the dots, but also trying to dig deep into different matters to really achieve something? So this is a question for all laureates. Thank you.
I believe someone touched on this briefly before. So Richard, you talk about having a lot of ideas, but you said the importance of depth.
Yeah, but you raise what, in a generalized sense, is one of the biggest dilemmas we have, which is the huge expansion of knowledge. And so what that does is that it fragments knowledge. And it is, you can't be Da Vinci anymore. They called that the Renaissance man, man and woman. And that is not really feasible. So that's, the opposite of that is to go deep into something. But what I think that we are lacking is the common core among all ideas. And as a little joke, but it's not a joke, cosmology is the way to think about the collective. I don't just mean cosmology, I mean our scientific endeavor, the thing that we talked about at the very beginning, which was Gamow's attempt to write the story from beginning to humanity, is something that fits with bio, it actually fits heavily with mathematics, and it definitely fits with our subject. And if you have that kind of common underlying thing, then you can also go deeply and heavily into one subject in this sort of collective way. But it is not easy to do. And I hope that that commonality of vision, the comprehension that everything is connected to everything else, is what people who are learning things will come away with, as well as concentrating on the individual thing. In science, in our science, it's called big science now. And we are making larger and larger teams of people who are doing great things, but they all have their thing to do. And what that means is that they don't necessarily have a good path through the whole picture. And I think that it isn't just that your question is spot on, it is the dilemma of our time to do grand unification of ideas, as well as the specificity that is necessary to bring the sciences and other things forward.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I mean, I think it is a very good question, and I think you have to do both. I think it's really limiting if you specialize on one little thing, because I mean, in a scientific career, the subject changes, and so I think it's important to to have a combination of breadth and depth. And I think that's really important to maintain a scientific career over a long time.
Do you think it's getting harder to maintain both?
I think it is getting harder.
So young people nowadays have bigger challenge.
It's a bigger challenge, but I mean, a very effective way of working is to try and work on a subject which is on the rise, where there's low-hanging fruit, and you can.
What do you think is the subject that is?
Oh, well, I mean, that's that. If I knew, I wouldn't tell you.
You can tell her afterwards. Okay. Any other comments, supplements?
No, I mean, of course you need specialists, but I mean, the art is really, I mean, to create an umbrella for them. But I think that has to be in the way of organizing collaborations. So I don't think there's a simple recipe.
What about Professor Fukaya?
So recent problem is that it is getting harder and harder to learn deeper enough to go to research level. But still, for my area, mathematics is still, in a sense, rather tightly unified. So if you learn one thing very deep, then in somehow other things you can understand in a kind of long run. So many things, it looks very much different, but finally it gets together, and it's kind of always highly tied. So
Good. We have a question back there of the gentleman with glasses that you raised your hands in the last round. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm a chemistry PhD from Hong Kong Baptist University.
Yes.
And I have a question, maybe for all the speakers, but more specifically for Professor John and Professor George. I wonder if you have any thoughts or insights on the so-called 3-eye atlas, the third interstellar object that's been gaining a lot of attraction recently in the scientific community, but there's not a huge amount of news about it on mainstream media right now, which I'm quite curious about. But a lot of people online are mentioning there's a lot of anomalies about it, and even speculating it might be extraterrestrial. So I just wonder if you have any thoughts on this interstellar object, since you're both specialized in cosmology.
You can play diplomat here.
The answer is no.
My diplomatic
any
answer
thoughts.
is we're very skeptical. But we have colleagues who we know well that are pushing that interpretation. And, but they're definitely in the minority. So we don't think that we have, if extraterrestrials are visiting us, they're so far beyond us that you probably don't know that they're around. And they are interpreting. What we can do, I'd say with relative confidence, is that there is life beyond the Earth. That, I think, most astronomers definitely agree with. And the hope is that we can discover it, but I don't think that they're zipping in to see us, because if you're really advanced, you have transcended all of these things. And what you probably are is an artificial intelligence as opposed to a alien. Well, you could say that's alien, but you know what I mean. A little green man is what is probably been transcended.
But this is the sort of problem that I think I need to go to a beach and think about.
Well, here's $600.
Get another letter. Yeah, and then, thank you. Any other question from the audience? Yes, maybe the gentleman in glasses at the second row, third row. You can raise your hands.
Thank you very much for your sharings, professors. My name is Darren Pun, and I have a question directed for Professor...
Which institution are you from?
Oh, I'm a secondary student from South Island School.
Ah, South Island School.
Yes. So I have a question directed towards Professor Baumeister, but all of you are free to answer, actually, because so as I'm aware, your work on cryo-electron tomography is very interdisciplinary. It's not only biology and chemistry; it also contains like lots of physics and some mathematical modeling as well. So I'd like to ask, like, what advice do you have towards for some aspiring scientists who aim to tackle topics that involve disciplines which they might not be so proficient in or familiar with, and how should they tackle these problems in order to generate new and original research? Thank you very much.
Well, join an interdisciplinary team. I think that is the best way of doing it. And I think we always had, students, postdocs, with background in physics and chemistry and in biology. I think you can only develop that by joining, I mean, a truly interdisciplinary team.
Any other suggestion, advice? Agree?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. I see another question from the front. Yes, you raise your hand.
Right. Thank you, Laureates, for your truly inspiring talk. I am Syed Ryan Rahman, and I'm a Year 3 student studying biotechnology at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. My question is actually directed towards Professor Wolfgang Baumeister. As you have mentioned in your talk that you have faced some difficulties in your fantastic journey, and of course you have been rewarded with success. But could you shed light on some of the things when you look back at your journey? So could you shed light on some of the things that you might have done correctly that ultimately led you to the position you're in now, and how aspiring researchers or aspiring students who want to pursue a career in academics should learn from it? Thank you so much.
Well, good question, but I mean, it's often difficult to give a good answer to a good question. I think, as I said before, I always thought it's helpful to give graduate students, postdocs, an awful lot of freedom. So I think many ideas come from bottom up, and I think there are unconventional ways of. I think that automatically leads to outside the box thinking. Let the young scientists, develop their own ideas and don't limit them or don't discourage them. So, I'm real fan of, developing things coming from bottom up instead from top down. I don't think anybody would have recommended or encouraged to develop something like cryo-electron tomography. I think it would have been discouraged. I don't think we would ever have gotten a grant to develop it. So I think it has to be driven, by the desire to solve it, to find a technique, a method, to study the molecular organization of cells. And so give people, the young scientists, as much freedom as possible.
What about the other professors?
Well, I completely agree with enabling the younger generation to be free in ideas. So, for example, when I was a graduate student, I was extremely lucky that I got to do what I wanted to do. Now, you could say that's not a good thing because you have to know what to try and do. But then you have the ability to explore things while you're developing, and I think that's an extremely important ingredient, but it's not easy. And when you're mentoring, there are different capacities, and some people will be more creative than others. And so what you have to do as a senior person is you have to see what the capacities are and try and optimize the development of those individuals. But that is not a top-down thing, that's kind of a sideways thing of how can I help you get to the next level? And so every individual has a different capacity in their pursuit of the sciences. And what we have to do is to tailor our mentoring to those individuals. And what happens, and this is the miracle, is that it may go slow, 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 and then I get it, and they take off. And that is the most brilliant thing, A, to observe, and B, to be part of.
So it's more like a personalized approach.
It is, I don't think there's any other choice. There is no rigidity in the mentoring.
What about Professor Fukaya? What do you think?
I just want to say something from the point of view of student, not for the mentoring. I think sometimes you feel that the direction you go, is not so much understood by your mentors, or maybe when you submit the papers and the referee does not react, or social community does not react good, then there are two things I think I can say. One is just you have to be serious, honest to yourself. It means that it may really a case that this approach you are going with soon stuck, and you just pursuing just because you spend so much time already. So you want to seriously think yourself, or maybe honest to yourself, so that it is really okay, and you have to stop it or not. That's one thing. But the other thing is that you have to trust yourself. If your mentor says that this is not interesting, the community does not react nicely, but still you feel, when you're very honest and you believe it is okay, then you have to be very independent. You have to insist that you go this way. That's the only way you can do something.
And trust yourself. What about George? Anything to support?
So I'm a great fan of bottom-driven research.
Bottom-driven.
That it, and I think that I mean I've seen many cases of top-driven research, which generates low-grade proposals because there's a pool of money that's been made available, and people go for it. And I think the real creative work comes from the bottom.
Thank you. So it's almost 4:30, but before we end, I'd like each of the laureates to give one advice to the people in the audience who are aspiring scientists. Maybe we can start with Richard first. One piece.
The most important thing is to believe you can do it. That is to say, confidence. And that's not an easy thing to do because you think, oh, everybody's smarter than me, everybody's knows more than me, and if I open my mouth, I will say something that looks stupid. I make a point of, I wouldn't say looking really stupid, but showing young people that the seniors who supposedly know so much can ask stupid questions. And the only way to go forward is to not be afraid of asking what you think are stupid questions, because usually they are not stupid whatsoever. If you don't understand them, then you probably have to ask them, and they will turn out not to be stupid. And you can learn that way. And if you say, I can't say anything because I may be wrong, then you will never be able to self-develop. And I think I've already mentioned, self-development is what it's all about for humanity, but in particular for developing scientists.
What about George?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with what Dick said about fearlessness and confidence. There's something else, though, that I mean, in my scientific career, I found, very, very effective, okay, which is never let anything go. If you're looking at a problem and something doesn't quite make sense, follow it, because you might learn something. Okay, if they've done an observational project and something doesn't make sense, don't try and hide it, don't ignore it, look at it carefully, because that small thing that doesn't quite make sense might be telling you something very important. So you must, fearlessness, confidence, but never let anything go, okay?
Okay.
I think you have to be genuinely curious about something, only then you can become passionate, and you need to be passionate to overcome hurdles along the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What I can say is that do not trust any of us. do not believe me, since you're young, and we say some of our experience, but the world is changing, and you think you have some new insight, and it's probably better than my insight.
So dare to challenge.
Yeah.
So let's give a round of applause to all four Shaw Laureates who have given us many ideas and very good advice and suggestions. And also round of applause for yourself for attending and also for asking this great question. So thank you once again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our time today together has come to an end. Please join me in one final round of applause for our distinguished laureates, Professor John Richard Bond, Professor George Efstathiou, Professor Wolfgang Baumeister, and Professor Kenji Fukaya, and of course for our moderator, Professor Samuel Wong. On behalf of the Shaw Prize Foundation, I would also like to extend our thanks to all of you today for coming here and your thoughtful participation. Do feel free to share your experience online, and remember to tag us at the Shaw Prize or use the hashtag #ShawPrize2025. We would love to see your reflections. Please take a moment to now scan the QR code that we show you appearing on the screen that is also found in your pamphlets to complete the post-event survey. As a token of our appreciation, you'll receive a special souvenir upon completion. We look forward to welcoming you again at next year's Roundtable. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.